Good evening. Are we on, Caleb? Caleb?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. Good evening, folks. My name's John Torrey. I am the chair of the Harwich Finance Committee. And we are meeting tonight, March 24th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to do a call to order of the meeting. Angelo? Are you here?
Yeah.
Okay. Dan?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Dale?
Here.
Karen? Mark?
Here.
Present.
And I'm here also at 7-0. You have a quorum. And we are having a public hearing tonight. Or first, are there any public comments or announcements from the public? There's nobody here. We are going to have a public hearing tonight. And Dale will read the public hearing notice.
Thank you. Pursuant to Chapter 9, Section 7 of the Town of Harwich Charter, the Finance Committee will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 24th, 2022, no earlier than 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of reviewing and adopting the fiscal year 2023 capital outlay plan and fiscal year 2023 budget. Copies of the plan will be available on the town website. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend. The meeting will be held at Harwich Town Hall, room 732 Main Street, Harwich, Mass. 02645. John Chory, Chairman, Finance Committee. This was published in the Cape Cod Times on March 15th, 2022.
Okay. I'd like to do a roll call vote on opening the public hearing. Angelo?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
It's 7-0. We have a 7-0 vote. The public hearing is now open. And the public hearing is open, and Town Administrator Joseph Powers will give a presentation on the FY23 budget and the FY23 capital budget and the 5-year capital plan. And thank you, Joe, for coming in tonight and explaining the two different budgets to the town.
Well, I will, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, and thanks for having me, and good evening to you, to your members of the board. I will attempt to answer questions regarding those two items, but I also noticed that we have Caleb Ledoux, who works for Channel 18. You've got somebody else on the line. You might want to ask if they're the public.
Oh,
That's me. M is me.
Narts. Thanks, Mark. So,
thank you, Joe.
well, thank you. The only reason I say that is as we've talked, you're here to meet your obligations under the charter, which requires the Finance Committee to meet in public hearing to go over the capital budget, and I can certainly speak to that and changes that have been made since the books were produced, and also talk about the operating budget. So perhaps, Mr. Chairman, you folks may want to keep it open for a while in the fervent hope that the public actually shows up.
Okay.
And then at some point, you folks can close your hearing, and I'll remain, and if you want to get into your other agenda items.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the preference of the committee? Would you like me to talk about the fiscal year 2023 capital budget as most recently changed by the board? And then go from there? What's your preference?
We'll start with there. That's Joe. That's fine. Yep.
And if you're working off of the budget books created by our finance director, Carol Capola, you can start on page 85. And 85 identifies the capital outlay budget for '23 and the plan years. So, Mr. Chairman, as you would know, as also a member of the Capital Outlay Committee, I met with Capital Outlay Committee again last week, March 17th, which turned out to be a very eventful St. Patrick's Day. The green we were dealing with was money and not the green I'm used to dealing with on St. Patrick's Day. I say that because Capital Outlay Committee did finalize their obligation, and they adopted the plan. And again, I apologize, but I feel it necessary to do some explaining of the capital process because we're in mid-step of changing the charter as it relates to the capital. So the plan, for our purposes, would be fiscal years 2024 through 2027, or the out years from the budget, The budget would be the year coming up, fiscal year '23. And the combination of those two gets to the overall capital outlay program, which then equates to a 5-year program. So there are no changes to the capital outlay plan for fiscal years 2024 through '27 from what you see in your book. Really, the changes that have been affected deal simply with the the capital outlay budget for fiscal year 2023. You may recall, Mr. Chairman and members, that through your joint meetings with the Board of Selectmen on March 10th and March 17th, the board had expressed an interest for me to do an exercise and try to free up some of the free cash that was originally utilized for 59% of the funding source for the fiscal year '23 capital budget. I apologize. Capital budget. I'm going to keep saying the word capital budget. That's what we're dealing with. Given that that was the highest percentage of any source, and knowing that the town has traditionally used free cash in other areas, the Board of Selectmen directed me to suggest some reductions. The reductions that I presented to the Capital Outlay Committee last week were endorsed unanimously by the full Capital Outlay Committee, and that allowed me to present last Thursday evening, which I think you folks may have had a copy with the original uses for free cash throughout the entire budget process. Since then, the Board of Selectmen at their meeting this past Monday, March 21st, made some changes to the use of free cash, some that impact upon the capital budget, and some that will just impact upon articles or the operating budget. I will tell you that the board is still scheduled to take up at their meeting on Monday, the 28th, to consider additional impacts on the capital budget as presented. So that's a long introduction to say that if you are looking at the budget presented on page 85, and going alphabetically by department name, Brooks Academy renovation project, you can see the 5-year plan, but for fiscal year 2023, it's calling for $250,000 for the Brooks Academy renovation project. I had initially cut that in my discussions last week with Capital Outlay, and the Board of Selectmen voted Monday evening for that to be restored. So I can tell you that that is the ongoing effort with capital dollars augmenting what the town has done in years past with community preservation dollars. And of course, this all impacts upon the Brooks Academy, which, as I look to my right, you can see on the mural, is the centerpiece of that mural, and as I've often said, is the centerpiece of our town seal. What the $250,000 gets us, the most important element of the $250,000 is upwards of $150,000 set aside for owner's project manager, and or OPM. Now, the OPM is a required element under the procurement laws, because when you're dealing with construction, and in this instance, renovation, rehabilitation is considered a construction project, and you anticipate the total cost to exceed $1 million, then you must procure for municipal projects an owner's project manager. Now, that is something that wasn't contemplated in previous CPC article and/or capital articles. Hiring an owner's project manager is also something that could not be funded by CPC. And so I explained that to the board Monday evening. The board then voted unanimously to restore $250,000. So that is anticipated to go forward as part of the capital budget for fiscal year 2023. The same cannot be said for the beautifying the village of Harwich. The request for 2023 was for $50,000, and that has been removed from the plan, and the board supported the removal of that.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know if you wanted to, if there are any questions on that before I continue.
And the 250 is free cash.
That's correct. 250 is coming from free cash, and that was affirmed by the board.
Yep, thank you. Did you want to go, does anyone else have any questions for Joe right now, or?
Nope.
So then moving on, Mr. Chairman, you can see the Channel 18 requests.
Yep.
There's 2 requests there, but one is for out years. The request for '23 is for $66,470, and as you folks probably already know, that is for equipping the meeting rooms and the field equipment, and the funding for Channel 18 is derived from the revenue that we get from Comcast as the sole provider of cable in the town, and that populates what are known as the PEG, or Public Education and Government Funds, and that will be the funding source for that.
Thank you. So that's in the budget then? Still?
That remains in the budget and funded through those
Okay.
specific earmarked funds. Moving on to Community Center, the first item you'll see is Green Community Utilities, and it's coming out of free cash. I do have an update on the numbers, however. So the initial request from the facilities manager was for the amount you see there, $437,400. And as you heard me explain at your joint meetings, the intent on that is it's the Green Communities Grant that the town is eligible for. And to continue to be eligible, we have to meet certain project requirements. So the Green Communities Utility Project gets to high-efficiency energy utilities such as heating, ventilation, air conditioning, boilers, burners, and the like. In this particular instance, the money would be used for replacing a 40-ton chiller, a heating boiler, and a domestic hot water boiler. And that would be at different buildings throughout town. The initial request of $437,400, we now know affirmatively because the town has received the grant. And so the total for the equipment shook out at $459,492, so $459,492. However, the town's responsibility for that is $298,540. So if you're looking on page 85, the number there, $437,400, should be scratched out and replaced with $298,540. And that's because we received the grant amount from the Commonwealth, which is just under $161,000.
Great.
And again, that was never cut, remains in the plan, endorsed by the board, and the $298,000 figure will be funded through free cash.
So then, between those two numbers, whatever it makes out to be reverts back to free cash now.
Correct. Yep, and I will be able to give a summation at the end, if that helps, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
The privacy fence, that again was a project through facilities management, and it's the fencing that you would see behind the community center and the ball fields there, and that's simply what it's been called, a privacy fence for the benefit of the abutters. It's in a state of disrepair. The replacement cost is $75,000, and the board supported my reduction of that in the capital plan. And what the board asked me to do is to see whether there are other funding sources for that. And unfortunately, the revolving funds that were suggested, the language does not allow for that use. So I have not found a suitable separate funding source for that, so it will probably not remain,
Okay.
or it will remain out of the plan, I should say.
Good.
And then the last item there, actually had a conversation this morning with town council about the articles, and what he's indicated is the weight room equipment replacement, because it's expected to come out of the community center revolving fund, which is for weight room equipment. Council has opined that the town already has the appropriation, and so that does not even need to go before town meeting, because it's the use of the revolving fund. The good news, however, is we've given notice that those capital equipment items will be replaced.
So that one won't even show up on the warrant somewhere?
Correct, because the appropriation's already there
Okay, so I gotta,
in the present year.
all right, I'll
Okay,
take that off.
good. Any questions from folks? No?
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
the $30,000 gets lined out? on the
Correct,
capital campaign?
yep, not necessary for the plan or the budget because of the funding source.
Can I ask a question? If, excuse me. The cultural center, does that receive a lot of the funds to redo the air conditioning and whatever?
So is that for the Green Communities
Green
Utilities?
community. I was wondering where the green community funds would be spent. Would they be spent on this building and other buildings that the town has used forever? Or would it be put in a pile to see if they can change the cultural center?
So I should have known by my own headline, these are utilities at the community center. So
Community
every one of the utilities you see there
That
is
was
in
my
support of the community center.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't say it that well.
Okay.
So thank you for the chance to correct that.
Guess the next one, the stormwater.
So, yes, stormwater. So that is the Stormwater Environmental Protection Agency, the MS4 compliance. You may recall in years past, that was an expense item in the engineer's budget, but really it's been determined to be more accurately a capital item, given the extensive nature of the program and the compliance needs. And working with the consultant vendor that we have, which if I remember correctly, is Weston and Sampson. We have a need for $100,000 in fiscal year 2023. That is funded through free cash, and that has not changed from the plan. So we anticipate that going forward as presented.
Okay,
So this is where we start getting tricky. Fire department, engines and other fire-equipped vehicles. And I know you folks heard it because you were there in the joint meeting. So at present, that is not in the capital plan. Excuse me, I should say capital plan or budget. The reality is, much like we saw with the green communities, if the town were successful in acquiring the $450,000 grant, the town's match contribution requirement is $22,500. So, there's a couple things going on there. We would have to set aside almost $500,000 in free cash. If we got the grant, then it would drop all the way down to $22,500. So the message I conveyed to the fire chief is to see if he can support the match within his operating budget. And then if so, we can still pursue the grant, which we've applied for, but simply use the smaller amount, because the understanding is, if we don't get the grant, we're not acquiring the equipment, because the town, and the chief is the first one to say this, that it's an excessive amount without the benefit of the grant.
I understand.
So we take it off the plan
it's out.
altogether?
So it's off the plan. There's additional discussion on any of these plan items that I'm talking about from this point forward. The board will discuss it again Monday evening. I don't have a sense yet if it comes back.
Right.
I think the way we're trying to approach that is find the smaller amount somewhere else and possibly through
That'd be-
existing appropriations.
Be great to get that grant,
Yep.
yeah.
And you'll hear me say, this is the first of many times, that if there's vehicles that are being requested and they're not funded, if they're funded through free cash, they're presently not in the plan. The board's directive to staff then was, be aware that your vehicles aren't in the plan, come back Monday evening, the 28th, excuse me, and either be prepared to make a pitch for the vehicles and why they should be restored, or see if you have other funding sources available. So fire department vehicles falls under that category. So it is not in the present voted budget.
I thought they put them back in Monday night, but I guess not then. Okay.
No, there was some back and forth on that, but Ellen and I researched our notes, and on that one, there's a hold on it.
Okay?
So the
But like I said, I do expect them to come back for
The
discussion.
130 is out?
No, it's on hold, kind of.
Hold.
The fire department's gonna come in Monday night and pitch the selectmen again for it. It's
That,
two vehicles. It's a deputy chief and a fire inspector chief.
Correct,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, thank you. Next one, golf.
So golf would be pretty much the same thing. The vehicle purchase, again, I believe that's two vehicles. It's $90,000. That was being sought to be funded through free cash. So that's been pulled out of the plan and looking for more conversation on the 28th.
Okay, so the golf committee, you think is coming on the 28th?
I believe it's going to be coming through the superintendent.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay, fine, thanks, so it's a hold, okay.
There's nothing in fiscal year '23 for harbor master, nor with library. When you jump down, the 2 police department items remain in the capital budget and were affirmed by the Board of Selectmen. So that's equipment replacements, which gets to bulletproof vests and other necessary equipment, and the technology replacement is part of a multi-year program, and that gets to uninterruptible power sources related to public safety dispatch. So those remain in the plan.
And these two, Joe, they're both in the warrant, so we can vote on them later on.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any of the items that I just mentioned that were affirmed by the selectmen are, should be in your draft warrant, and are eligible for action by you folks.
Thank you. And we also realize that things are subject to change too, and then we can vote to reconsider if that happens.
Public Works, the ball field mower, that falls into that category of further discussion. It's presently not in the budget, because again, the proceeds for that were coming from free cash, as well as the annual vehicle replacement process. That $495,000 covers 4 vehicles. You folks know as well as I do how well Link Hooper and Kyle Edson manage the program and the vehicles. So I can tell you that I know that those vehicles that were scheduled for replacement are currently categorized as poor condition.
Yes.
But when you have a number that high, it obviously creates a big target, so that is coming back for further discussion with the board.
And Link will be in Monday night too, you think?
Say again?
Link will be in Monday night too, you think?
I believe so, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What about the Chapter 90 funds? Did you address that?
So no, I was just gonna get to that. That's, again, for me, and you folks would know better, that's a standard. So what I've tried to do different from years past is, as you may recall, we do $700,000 from our Chapter 90 allocation, which again came in this year just, I think, like $4,800 lower than $700,000, so right on target. And that the remaining $700,000 goes in front of the voters as an override debt exclusion. And so that remains in the plan, so that's where the funding comes on that.
Thank you.
So in terms of us voting, what's the amount? Are you voting on?
700,000.
700, okay.
That'd be for the debt exclusion, the 700.
You might want to check the article. I think it might speak about both Chapter 90 and the debt exclusion. If it does, you'd want to do the 1.4.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Aaron, if
Yep.
you can look at that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Town clerk voting equipment, that is the replacement from the model that is being discontinued by the Secretary of State's office. That amount, the $75,000, I believe, covers 5 machines, 1 for each of the precincts, plus the spare, which is always recommended. Again, given that we're coming into a gubernatorial election year, ahead of a presidential election year, this was never removed from the budget, because hell hath no fury than a voter who is impacted, and we understand that.
Definitely.
Okay.
And then to round it out, the last item that you see there for fiscal year 2023, no, sorry.
No, that's at the water department.
Water repair,
Yeah.
So,
replacements.
yeah, I have to find my other notes for a moment, because that 85,000 is somewhat outdated.
90,000.
We have 90.
Excuse me, 90,000. See, this is why I need to leave early. So you have the 90,000 for vehicles, however, that's coming through the water department's retained earnings, not free cash, so that is something that passed muster. What is not reflected in the booklet is the additional
300,000.
300,000 that you folks were made aware of.
Right.
That the Capital Outlay Committee was made aware of, and that's $300,000 for Route 28 water main design work.
Oh, that's in here too.
And so, that is what will appear in the version that will go in the warrant. So it's, it would come after,
I think it's in the warrant.
It is in here, but
Yeah.
on that list you just gave me, I thought we crossed that out.
Yeah, I don't know. I could double check. When we get to that, we can double check.
Yeah, well, if that's, are you adding that now, Joe? Is that
so,
what you're
sorry,
saying?
what I was going by was this book,
Yeah.
budget book,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
yeah,
warrant
yeah.
book. And the reason why there's an X on that one is we're still working out the language.
Oh,
But the funding has been confirmed for $300,000 from retained earnings
okay,
for
awesome.
Route 28 water main design work. And again, the hope on that one is that by doing the design work in fiscal year '23, we'd be ahead of most of our competitors, that is to say other towns,
300.
on the infrastructure money that is specific to these types of projects. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, that rounds out the discussion on the fiscal year 2023 capital budget.
What is the total now, do you know? If you don't know, don't worry.
I don't know because I don't have the right document in front of me. I can tell you that
Took a ton out, yeah.
what I do have, what I calculated was the total of free cash that's available. I can get that to the committee before next week for sure.
Yeah, just a new sheet or something would be great. That's good.
Okay, thank you on the FY '23 budget.
That was helpful.
Now you'll go into 24 through 27. Like you say, it hasn't changed really though, right? The 24 through 27, you're gonna go into that now? That hasn't changed?
I was hoping not to, only because the requirement is on specifically to the budget for the hearing.
Okay.
And I would just say that we know there's a number big enough to choke an elephant under fiscal year '24. But what, as I would say, is that if you really parse the numbers, that 44.6 million takes a significant change in complexion when you back out the water main replacement, the East Harwich collection system expansion, and the sewer main installation. And so those three total 39 million out of the 44.
Yeah.
And so, that starts reducing it. What I've tried to sort of reconcile is that, and again, you folks that know this probably better than I, that generally capital tends to come in the 3 to 5 million range. And so when you back those out, I think fiscal year '24, all things being equal, starts to look a little bit more normal. Having said that, the eye can just be attracted as you go down, and Mr. Chairman, as you and I know from the discussions of capital outlay, there's a $2 million project in the middle of that plan that's regarding the Allen Harbor Jetty project. And that's not without its critics in the short term, and it's also, at this point, I would say, fairly safe to call it a placeholder number.
Yep, well, that's the idea of the capital plan.
Right.
And can I ask a question about that now?
Sure.
Should we anticipate a change in the cultural center capital plan going out? Because there's a lot more stuff that's potentially going to be looked at, right?
So the short answer is no, only because it remains to be seen what's truly going to happen with the municipal building at 204 Assistant Road that includes culture.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
And I say that because when I went before Capital last week, the question was asked for anything that was in fiscal year '23 that was cut. If it's not restored, what happens to it? And my response
Yeah,
was,
good question.
it's cut.
Yeah,
I have no anticipation of going back to that unless I have direction from the board to do so. With the plan, for me, there's two things, and I know the chairman's heard me say it umpteen times. You folks may have heard it a few times, but it gets back to that conundrum that we have with the current charter configuration on capital. And the change that was adopted in 2019 that says any change to the plan requires a 2/3 vote. And so, I know, Mr. Chairman, others have said that that's what gave rise to a lot of departments to try to at least get something in the plan because of that fear of that significant quantum of vote. We don't know how that's gonna shake out yet, meaning, I think the original framers of that change aren't a group that they were when they did it. And so I don't know who would be the one to speak to what the intent was, if there's a challenge and how we operate that. And so, when the facilities manager talked about that item in that year, what he said was, if the plan continues, and I'm now talking about the plan, what I will refer to as the interim use plan that was extended by the Board of Selectmen in 2018, that's set to expire in 2024, that it would be too late in that cycle to impact upon fiscal year '25, which would be 2 months later, so that it would rather be for fiscal year 2026. My understanding in talking with the facilities manager is that, if you look at that in fiscal year '25, that would definitely be year 1 of 5. But he didn't see an urgent need to bring that forward sooner. Now, if I can go on a little bit longer, Mr. Chairman, what I would say is, without trying to get into the discussion under capital, but
Right.
still ready to talk about it, we then have the question of the revolving fund dollars that are there. And the present definition of the use for the middle school, I believe it's called the Middle School Cultural Center, so it's got both in there,
That's just another-
is really for support of the building, including maintenance and repairs. So, I'm looking at that saying, we have $250,000 that could impact upon that building in the short term. And I am confident that we can make that $250,000 mean something in fiscal year '23 if that's the way we're going.
Got it. Thank you.
Long answer to a short question, but Karen, I think you know how I roll now.
No, I got it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the capital budget,
Mhm.
right, Joe?
Yep.
Did you want to get into the operating budget just?
So what I could do, certainly, Mr. Chairman, and I do want to make sure we're all operating from the same songbook, so to
Right.
speak. So you folks would have received a copy of the memorandum. It's dated March 18th, 2023. It's from our finance director to the Board of Selectmen. It talks about fiscal year 2023 budget amendments.
Correct.
All right, so if you
Everybody
have
has a copy.
that,
Everybody has a copy here.
yep. What I would ask you to do is, rather than look in the budget book
Yeah.
for what begins on page 89, is if you look at that memorandum,
Yeah.
it is the 1, 2, 3, it's the 4th page, or the second of the double-sideds, that start with fiscal year '23 Board of Selectmen recommended budget.
Yep.
And so, I'm gonna start with that, I'm gonna give you line items and some narrative, but I'm now, just by turning that page, also reminded that the board voted Monday evening to remove cruisers from the operating budget and to put police cruisers into the capital budget. So if you're looking on, the page that says town operation budget, if you look at the second page with line number 66, you see
Flip over.
police capital outlay. Board recommends fiscal year 2023, $157,000.
There you go. 66.
Okay.
Yeah.
That 157 has been taken out of the operating budget and replaced in the capital budget. It has a funding source of free cash, and the board said they intend to discuss it further.
The cruisers are being moved where, Joe? To-
The cruisers are taken off of line 66. So if you look all the way over to the right, that 157,000 is slated to appear in the final fiscal year '23 capital operating budget,
Right.
and funded by free cash pending further discussion by the board.
No, I don't think that's a warrant yet, right? If it's-
So, yeah, I was just gonna
does
ask,
have
is
to be
that a new warrant?
It will be, and there's well, so any of these items that are in limbo, what you'll see in your free time, which you folks don't have much of, but you'll see the agenda packet for the Board of Selectmen's meeting. There's a full warrant that's there, and that captures all of the articles we know that the board intends to keep in the warrant, separate from whether they recommend it or not. And then on the board's agenda, there's probably half a dozen or so standalone articles. And so what we did is we created articles so that Monday evening, the board could say, take that standalone, throw it in the warrant, renumber it. So that you folks are meeting again on Tuesday evening.
Tuesday, right?
You'll have by Tuesday afternoon that latest version. So anything that I said is still in consideration is meant to be a standalone article that's not yet in the warrant. And depending the disposition by the board, will either be kept out of the warrant or be inserted and amalgamated within the warrant.
And that's in the, that'll be in the selectmen's packet, right?
It's already in the packets that have been posted.
Okay,
Excuse
good.
me. The warrant's been posted,
saw
the
the
packet's
warrant.
getting posted
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I
Yep.
saw the agenda, but I haven't seen the packet yet.
Yep.
Okay. And that packet, when does that get posted, the packet?
Before close of business on Fridays.
Friday, okay,
Yep.
good, because then I can get a chance to make copies of it and get it distributed.
Sure,
to the board.
absolutely.
Great,
Yep.
thank you, Joe.
So then if we're all on the same page,
Yep.
I'll draw your attention to line item number 2. I'm gonna steal a line from Selectman Anderson, who called me and said, did the selectman's stipend go up a little bit? So what you can see there is the net change is, it's an additional $750,000, and as the finance director explains, that's an expense amendment that was added, and that's potential wage adjustments. As you know, the town's actively participating in collective bargaining negotiations with all 8 of our collective bargaining associations. Anything that happens there then impacts upon the personnel bylaws. So that is trying to set aside funds for that accomplishment, as well as wage adjustments that relate to existing employee benefits such as step increases. You know, the natural transitioning through the steps of a grade.
I saw that, and I thought it was a typo with it, but now you explained what it is, so, okay.
Yep. So it was an effort, first of all, to
Yep,
get it
to put
into
it
the
somewhere.
budget.
Yep.
And so that as you see the bottom line on the final page, it includes that dollar amount. Again, you'll eventually see on line 66 that dollar amount will be removed. If you look down the page at 102, community center expenses, you will recall that the board voted Monday evening to, I believe the community center director's request was for $4,800, and I believe what the board did is they gave $2,400. So the community center expense line will go up by $2,400.
Okay. And I posted these all on our finance committee agenda and information, so the public can always refer to these later if they're watching this tape at their
Sure.
leisure. All these budgets are posted on our webpage.
Then if you turn the page, you'll see line item 118. I'm not gonna lie, this is becoming a personal favorite of mine. I did not advocate strenuously, but I appreciated the board's action. So the recreation expense line item is increasing by $2,500, and that is additional support for our town band. If we are truly coming out of pandemic, for me, nothing will say coming out of pandemic better than going to the bandstand on Tuesdays and watching our town band. And so they'll use that for some equipment changes. They'll be using it to get banners to advertise that they're back. And last but not least, I think they're gonna get some spiffy uniforms. So I love living in a town that has a town band.
Yeah.
And so we doubled their budget, from $2,500 to $5,000.
Okay.
Next line item to pay attention to would be 121, Harbor Masters, salary and wages. You heard the Harbor Master speak. And again, I want to emphasize that what the department heads were advocating for is what we call in the accounting part of our budget as enhancement of services. So I want to be clear that until I made cuts to the capital budget, there were no cuts to programs or to departments. Rather, what there were is either approval of enhancements or denying of enhancements, knowing that they would then have an opportunity to go before the selectmen and for you folks. So the board has restored, the board has added, under line 121, Harbor Master salary and wages, under the Board of Selectmen FY 2023, an additional $60,000, and that was for the seasonal assistant harbor master that Harbor Master John Rendon spoke of, to help them with management of all of the harbors and all of the waterways in town, including the ponds and what have you.
It was 60,000?
That was the total amount in, is my
I
understanding.
thought John wanted 12,000.
Oh, sorry, nope, you're right. 60, yep, thank
Yeah, it
you.
was a
can't
lot
fool
less.
me,
So hang on,
That's what I was
hang
looking
on,
at.
John, John Rendon, don't jump on the meeting yet.
I thought it was 12,500.
I'll do even better, it was 11,500, sorry, 11,500, I apologize.
There we go.
I'm too eager to talk about the next stuff. And actually, now that I said that, I think I missed it.
Okay,
How did I miss that one? Let me,
okay.
there is something we're gonna have to go back on that one, the 60 grand. So,
I don't remember any enhancement of 60 grand, but,
so that's the thing, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the front of the memorandum,
okay.
it's $60,000, and it was the comfort station
Yes.
cleaning.
Yes.
Yeah, that we
yes.
And
just talked
so, why can't I find it?
about.
Is it under
I wrote it
recreation?
down here.
It was under highway.
DPW, yeah, I would think it would be under
Oh, actually, so it's already factored in. If you look at line 89,
89, okay.
if you look at the original budget book on page, page 90,
90, yeah.
the original dollar change for highway expenses was negative 7,798.
Mm-hmm.
So when you add 60,000, you net $52,202, as you see there in the new plan.
And that was line item, which line item?
It's line item 89, highway expenses.
Got it.
And so that was miscategorized as an enhancement of service. It's not an enhancement of service, and in fact, it's a, I believe this is either this, well, it really would be the third year because we held off on fiscal year 20 during the onset of the pandemic. So comfort station cleaning has been in the budget since fiscal year 20. Miscategorized as an enhancement of service. It's not, so it's been restored.
And what was that total number?
So if you look in the memorandum document,
60 grand?
the 60 grand is reflected, it nets out to be 52,202. So if you look at the new document, line 89,
Yeah.
that 1.6% increase factors in the 60,000, and originally it was a 0.2% decrease. So that one is already factored in.
Okay. Good.
And then I want to just draw your attention to line item 146. And you can see that OPEB has a recommendation of $250,000. That remains. What was changed is one of the items that the board asked me to consider for free cash was an additional enhancement of OPEB, and the board opted not to go forward on that.
And
So
that-
we will be funding OPEB for $250,000, and it's already incorporated into the operating budget document, and that's what you'll see on line 146.
That's what came off of the warrant list.
That's what came out there, the 250 on the warrant, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Again, apologies for the 60 grand. John Rendon, if you can hear this, you don't have to call, I corrected, with the help of my friends in the Finance Committee. So, Mr. Chairman and members, that's really the majority of what's changed, if you will, since you last met with the Board of Selectmen in joint session. The board has said that they will be contemplating additional enhancements and whether or not they'll add that to the budget. So we are still tiptoeing on the top of a moving train. And the documents that relate to that haven't been updated yet, but we'll get those done as soon as we can.
That's one question, Joe, that you did do, you didn't mention it, is the revenue amendments, that you've increased the revenue forecast.
Yeah, so the reason why I didn't cover that is, I'll be blunt,
Okay.
and I'm not disavowing, but I had little to do with that. That was a direct conversation with the board, and I think with you folks
Yep.
in session. But you're right, the revenue amendments that you'll now see, the total revenue increase of just under 684,000. And then you see that now reflected in the second page of the memorandum, on the local receipts page,
Yep,
and on the further breakout of the estimated revenues on the next page after that.
yep. No, I think that's a good thing to let the public know that, and I fully support the selectmen and Carol Coppola as the finance director's forecasting formula for revenues. It's a very conservative approach, and I agree too. Even though we all expect a banner year, I still am a very conservative person. So I appreciate her revisiting and the board revisiting and bumping it up a little bit. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions on the operating committee, operating budget? Angelo?
It's not on a good meeting.
I think that we should take some time and make sure that what we're suggesting is gonna be the revenue generated by golf, by waterways, et cetera, is at the right level, rather than being very, very conservative. Because if you look at last year and the year before that, they were very, very difficult years because of what was going on with the people. So I think we don't have to make it used for anything specific, but I think it's important that we look at it to make sure we have it at a good level. Because I bet you it's gonna be significantly higher than it's in now.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
and what happens is it becomes free cash. And well, not only does it become free cash, but it makes you have to tax more because you don't have the money. So I think we should make sure that's at the right level.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, Angelo, and I agree to a certain extent, but it's, as I've been reminded, it is the selectmen's budget, Joe, if I'm not correct, right? On the revenue forecasting formulas.
Correct,
and things
that's an
like
element of the selectmen's budget.
And the selectmen have heard us on this discussion of forecasting revenues. We can mention it again, but it's ultimately up to the selectmen to make those decisions.
Well, maybe we recommend it to the people
Yeah.
because it's costing them, residents, money. That's
Well,
what it's
that,
costing
you're right,
us.
it's educating the public, and yes. Anyone else have a question? Mark, Karen, Dale?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
What happens with free cash at the end of the year if it's not, like, we used a lot of free cash last fall in the town meeting. What happens to it if there's a balance that's unallocated?
So traditionally, I think what the town has done in years past is whatever's left over for free cash is added to stabilization, and we increase that. If I can build off of that question to also update you on where we were with the original balance coming into town meeting after the fall, and where we are potentially if the board makes no further changes. We're looking at roughly an ending balance, so free cash starts before this budget process of $3,076,202, with the changes that I've talked about this evening, and funding several other items, and I can go through those if you'd like. We now end up with an ending balance of $113,400. And so then the question for the board would be, what do you anticipate doing with that, if anything? I don't know how stable that number is tonight until the board does their meeting on the 28th. So it may be that we clean it out,
What does that mean, clean it out?
that there is no free cash left.
Does it go to retained earnings?
If there is no free cash, it doesn't go anywhere. We've used it completely for different items. So if there's a balance left, the town can have an article that adds it to stabilization as we've done in years past, or any other action. If we don't do anything, it's my understanding it dissipates.
I'm struggling with that concept. I feel like that would be my checking account at the end of the year, would
So I
just,
think that's why the towns traditionally, whatever they've had left over, they put it into the rainy day fund stabilization.
okay,
I'm reluctant to say what I would do with it, because I don't know what we're gonna end up with after Monday night.
sure.
Because again, as I've told the board, I understand they have a desire to put in the enhancements. We haven't done the full accounting yet, and we don't know what we're gonna do with vehicles, so
And-
stay tuned.
Good, Dale, yeah.
Just to further the question, last year, we ended up with, see, on August 17th, 2021, we certified for $6,302,898 of free cash.
Yep.
We started off the year budgeting for $353,943. Do you know what happened that year? Why did we-
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think it's what Angelo's getting to is that, we were anticipating some, quote, mild growth in revenue, and things went gangbusters. If you remember what happened last year, we had what now turned out to be that brief respite from COVID, and so people came outside.
Right.
When they came outside, they went in to the golf course, they went and used their boats, they went eat, drink, and stay here, so revenues increased greater than we expected. And so, the discussion that the board has had with the finance director, and one of the many things that our finance director does well for us is she was mindful of the town's long-term policy on how we use free cash and what percentages. So to go beyond what she went beyond would require a vote of the board. And so I think that's why there's some willingness to go higher, because we're now looking at perhaps, Groundhog Day all over again. We went through a difficult fall and winter. We're coming out again out of pandemic, and we get the sense that there's a lot of pent-up demand, and that demand can come back in the form of revenue. And so I think it gets to what Angela was saying, is that you want to strike that balance where you have as true to accurate estimated revenues as possible. Having said that, I don't think any of us, I bought a house last year. I don't know how I did that, and I know that when I bought it, I got darn lucky, because a month later, the house next door went for 120 grand higher, and it's not that much more of a house. So things just went crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what happens, and that's why, so what we do as a policy is, once we're right after the fiscal year, we try to get our estimates into the Department of Revenue, so we know where we are with free cash well in advance of our tax rate setting process. And so we always strive for that August filing, and we usually hear something September or October.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a question to you on the stabilization fund? That triggered me. That selectmen pulled some money out of or they're not gonna make a contribution this year to state?
Correct, so, and that gets to that list I was telling you about before. So, when I went before capital outlay on the 17th of March, I had presented them with what at the time totaled 1.6 million plus, that was taken out of the capital plan and freed up the free cash. We went from 59% of the plan being funded through free cash, I think, down to 16% funded by free cash, the third highest funding source. I then told the board that traditionally, you saw the $250,000 we have in the operating budget for OPEB. Well, in years past, and you go back to 2019, if we can call that the last of the normal years, we had allocated $500,000 for OPEB. And in that same year, we had allocated $384,000 for stabilization. So when the board gave me the exercise to free up free cash and to look at some of the other traditional uses, I put in my proposal to them that we use $384,000 to fund stabilization and an additional $250,000 to fund OPEB. I think where the board landed, and I think it's accurate, I think it's correct. I'm not that I'm a yes man, but I think they, in this instance, as many times, were correct. Because we understand our stabilization fund to be the rainy day fund. And what the board's looking to do is to continue programs. And I think the board felt that rather than increase a robust stabilization fund rather than fund it, use it elsewhere. And so they ended in the end to not fund 384,000 and to not increase beyond the 250 for OPEB.
Okay.
I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, I thought they weren't gonna make a contribution to the stabilization fund, and it is in our booklet here. But I didn't see it reduced here on this booklet page, though.
So that was the one that I presented Monday evening.
Yeah.
I'm updating it since.
Updating it,
Yeah, that was
correct.
before that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I was just,
Yep.
because I thought we took it out, but I see it right here, but I didn't, yeah.
So if it helps, I can, I have a laundry list, if you will. And Dale, it was going back to your question as well. When we start at $3,076,202 in available balance for free cash, so that's what we came out of the special in October with, because we used money there as well. What's presently in, it's a different version of that same form, where I've now broken it out by highest dollar amount down, and we talked about the wage adjustments that were put in the operating budget. Well, that's $750, that's in the operating budget, where we're not gonna raise and appropriate, we're gonna use free cash. The snow and ice deficit, we currently have a placeholder in there of 400,000. I had asked the director, hopefully not jinxing us, that if we don't have any more snow or ice, where are we at? The number comes in less than 400, but I can't recall directly, that'll be updated. Remember that the finance director informed us that we have to use free cash for the operating of the wastewater, because although we have flow, we're still a little bit behind where we expected to be. The green communities utilities I talked about, the Brooks Academy, the police cruisers, and then I do think you have them in your draft warrant. It would be the 2 contracts that the town has already settled in fiscal year '22. I think I may have told you folks there were 5 contracts that were either expired, so to speak. We can't really use that word because we carry on until they're renewed, but that had come due and were up for renegotiation. So the town had settled 2 of the contracts in the fall. That's what we used some of the free cash in the fall for. And we have settled for 2 that will come before town meeting. And one of them is a total cost of living adjustment of just under $140,000, and the other one is just under $50,000. So those are in there.
Okay.
Stormwater, golf vehicles, the traditional articles that you know of, promoting Harwich, which is the $30,000 for the chamber, the support of other libraries, technology replacements, nope, sorry, that was already covered, prior year bills, and an annual contribution to the Cultural Council. So all of that presently, now again, I have double counted the vehicles. I've both accounted for them being funded, and I've accounted for them being cut, because I don't know where the board's gonna go Monday night. So if they remain, and we add those vehicles, with the exception of the mini pumper, we're looking at expending, as I said, just under 3 million, 2,962,802, so that would get to the potential balance of 113,000
In free cash.
in free cash, correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think
so-
we'll see what happens Monday night with the
Yeah,
shuffling and.
just as a quick matchbook number here, keep in mind roughly what I would call it 300,000 in free cash that's still in play. So we could either end up at the 113, we could end up at almost 500,000. I don't see us going much lower than that. Who
Okay.
knows?
Yep, no, we'll see what happens with Monday night, yeah. Anybody else have a question down here? Angela, Dan, Mark?
No, I'm good.
Joe, just a quick question. What's the contracts, are they averaging out? Is there a range?
So what the town has settled for the 1 years, as we're calling them, that would be a cost of living adjustment retroactive to July 1st, so within the fiscal year. The town has offered in every instance a 1 year, so fiscal year '22, a 2% cost of living adjustment, and a language change. Now, of the, language change in the contract, 4 of the 5, let me do my math very quickly, sorry, 3 of the 4 that have settled, 3 of the 4 have language change that has no dollar value. The one that had a dollar value is the one we did in the fall, and it was an educational incentive for firefighters, and I think the language change was about 16,000. So what we're really talking about is for the 4 of the unions that have settled, we're talking about cost of living adjustments that are at 2%. We settled on 2% because the 3 contracts that are naturally expiring, meaning they were in the 3rd year of their 3 years, relate to patrol, superior, and police dispatch, and they were already at 2%. We'd fight a losing battle if we came in under 2, so we didn't. And like I said, 4 of the 5 have settled. The 5th one is still in negotiation.
Any other questions? I guess that's all we have, Joe, on the capital and operating budget for you. Thank you very much. I think it filled in a lot of blanks for me and other folks on the board, and hopefully folks listening at home, you filled in some blanks there too. And like I say, all the information we talked about tonight is available on the Finance Committee's website for the agenda posting for tonight. So you can look at those attachments, print them out, and everything we talked about is in the agenda and attachments for tonight. With that, make sure I got everything here. Yeah, I guess Dale, if you could.
I'd like to move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Yeah, Karen, Angelo, Mark, Dan, okay. 7-0, the public hearing is now closed. And we actually covered 2 birds with 1 stone here. We usually discuss it amongst the Finance Committee, but we've already discussed that, so we've closed that meeting too. And we'll move on to our normally scheduled meeting at this time, in which we're gonna take up warrant articles. And I think, Joe, you've penned in some X's and O's on my score sheet up here as to what ones we can talk about and ones not to talk about. I think we can excuse you for the evening. How's that?
Beautiful.
And I appreciate you coming in, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could take a moment first to say, you just made 2 teenage basketball players very happy, although they're going to insist, are the ladies playing tonight, or are they Friday night?
I think someone's playing tonight.
They gotta be playing tonight.
All right, so then we'll find that, because that's what they're going to have me watch, and I'll be okay with that. But I also want to take a moment, and I said it again at the joint meetings, but I do want to emphasize it. So I come before you folks as an agent of the executive branch, so to speak, and you folks are the front line for the legislative branch. And so I certainly know the work that you put in week in and week out and throughout the year. So personally and professionally, I want to thank you for your efforts. And it's not lost on me that this is your 3rd Thursday, and I get to leave before you. So thank you for your efforts as well. I appreciate it. And I look forward to all of us reconvening on town meeting, which, of course, John, you know, is in 39 days.
Yes.
Or actually less, because it's 38, because it's would have been underway 35 minutes by now. But I look forward to that, and I know we'll all be rewarded with our efforts by affirmative votes one way or the other by the town. So,
Well, thank you, Jen. You like to quote your, 39 days? for
39
town meeting?
days.
Well, I got 7 days to
Hey.
my town meeting of March 31st, where we
Yep.
have to vote as a committee on roughly $83 million budget. So I think Monday night will be a good night with the selectmen to go through and try to finalize some of these numbers and
Yep.
and get some final numbers that we can vote, especially the big numbers, the schools and the
Sure.
operating budget. So thank you again, Joe.
thank you, folks. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Joe.
it.
Okay.
you.
Have a good night and good luck.
You too.
Okay. Well, moving down the agenda for tonight, I have 4 items listed here. They're all pretty much one and the same, and they're all pretty much covered, they all are covered in the town FY '22 annual report, for warrants, which is, again, on the town's website for the Finance Committee. It's in there. It's the most up-to-date warrant article booklet that we have, that we've been operating from, and what the selectmen is. You heard Joe tonight. They're going to come out with a new one tomorrow for the packet, which I'll get printed out over the weekend and distributed to the members. So when we meet next Tuesday, we'll have a clearer direction on what the warrants will be like. So we'll start in that warrant book. Joe penciled in X's and O's on it, so we know which ones we can talk about tonight. They don't have funding allocated with them or something like that, and we'll go through those. I do want to mention to the board, though, that there will be two articles that we won't get into any real good discussion tonight because they'll be followed up with more discussion probably Monday night on one of them, that being the Monomoy School district budget. They came before us in the joint meeting, as you know, on March 17th, and the selectmen asked them to go back and take a look at their budget. I'm sure the selectmen are going to be talking about it on Monday night, so we won't even discuss that one. And then the last one that we won't be talking about tonight, but we will be talking about it on Tuesday, is the Cultural Center, or 205 Sisson, what's the number?
204.
204 Sisson Road project, but I refer to it as the Cultural Center, because there's much discussion on that. The selectmen did vote on it Monday night. It was indefinite postponement was their recommendation. I have asked Mr. Gunderson to come in, Richard Gunderson. It is a private petition put forward by a private citizen, and he is going to come before us Tuesday night and give us a brief overview of his petition. I ask you, if you haven't already, to look at the selectmen's meeting on Monday night. It's roughly, I looked at it again, it's roughly at the 2-hour mark, so you don't have to go through the 3.5-hour meeting there. But you can also look at the other things if you like, but Richard Gunderson's presentation's around the 2-hour mark. And I've also invited Richard Waystack and his wife Bernadette Waystack in, if they care to. I just wanted to make them aware because Mr. Waystack spoke at the selectmen's meeting Monday night, and I wanted to give them their chance if they wanted to speak again to us on Tuesday night. So and any other people from the public is more than welcome to come in. We do have the big room reserved that night, and we have the big room reserved on Thursday night. So there's plenty of seats here. I wish people would come in and let us know what you think. So with that, we'll start with go down through the articles here. Both Karen and Mark here have what Joe penciled in on the warrants.
Couple of
And
questions, yeah.
we'll try to figure out, because the warrant isn't in the most logical order,
Yeah.
but I think we have voted the first three, haven't we, Karen?
Yes. And
Okay,
then the next two, I guess it depends on which list.
Yeah.
So the next, we cannot talk about tonight, as you said, the operating budget, town operating budget, and the Monomoy Regional School District. We're not ready to, according to Joe.
the numbers haven't been settled, that's the
Yeah.
main reason.
Yep. And then beyond that, the next one there would be, that's the amend agreement between the towns of Chatham, which I think is on the table based on what Joe had given us.
Well, the next one, in following the list, is the tech school, which we voted on.
Yeah,
The water budget, he X'd out, but we did vote on them. We'll have to reconsider if that change is there.
right, that's what I was gonna ask you, yeah.
The placeholder of adopt the capital plan, we're gonna hold. Lease purchase agreements, we're gonna hold.
Hold, yeah,
Capital articles have been crossed out.
yeah.
The next one is the public education government PEG account, and we can vote on that one.
Is there a amount to that, though?
Yeah, there was.
I don't,
Where did I see that number is, where was that number?
because I didn't see one, but that's, it's,
Yeah,
I'm sure
that
it's
was
here
on,
somewhere.
it's in our budget book. We're gonna have to find their line
I don't
item.
know where anything is. I just keep on losing stuff. All right. Can't read.
Channel 18.
Yeah, we did actually talk about
We're
it.
bumped in with channel.
So
What is,
PEG is on page 17.
But I don't think that had an amount in it. I think he was looking in the detailed budget at the end of this deck
I saw a figure.
I saw
with
a
that,
figure
with
somewhere.
a figure. It must be on
Oh,
here.
it's in the
I
capital
think
plan.
it's in the capital.
Yeah, that's where it is, yeah. It was, that was page 90, or 80,
It's 66,000.
no, it's gotta be more than that.
Channel 8 table.
Here we go.
66,470?
No, it's not. I see it. Oh, that's the PEG, that's the PEG's capital, not their expense, okay. Because I think what they're referring to here, or maybe not, let's,
John,
yeah,
with all the things the selectmen are gonna be doing Monday night, would it might be easier just to wait for them to finish their votes on Monday night? And
well,
just give
we
us
we
it
can
on
either, we can
Tuesday?
either do that, or we can try to go through these ourselves.
But you don't know.
I know what you're saying.
The 38, 39 is channel 18.
Once they write the amount into the warrant,
Much easier to follow.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
And that way we know we're approving the same amount that they wrote.
They were,
Mhm.
yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the only way you can do it. Going to vote is- Let's get out of here.
I see what you guys are saying, yeah. Instead of trying to,
Should've said it.
Piece it
We should
together.
start
Yeah.
seeing if we can
I
raise.
was
the-
trying to hop through some of these tonight, though.
Well, some we have numbers too. So, for example, green community utilities, I don't know if that's my typo or whatever, but that, Joe just told us is 298, 540, I think. I think I just put that in there.
For what?
The community green utilities there?
Yeah,
That thing?
that's a,
What-
yeah, I think maybe you're right,
Reverse is
Angela. That might be a better thing
14.
to do. Yeah,
I-
instead of trying, because the warrant that we have doesn't have numbers associated with them or at all. And
Yeah, I have your old one.
if we misquote the dollar,
14's
Uh,
Harry.
yeah.
It's not on
We're
there?
spending a lot of
It's
time
old.
just going
Oh,
back
that's
and
the
forth,
Right,
real old one.
trying to
exactly.
find stuff.
Yeah, no, Mark and Karen, I think, Angela's got a very good point of, we've got 2 or 3 booklets up here of trying to find numbers, and if we have a warrant that has the printed numbers in them, because Joe also pulled out a bunch of warrants too, from the book too, so I think it probably would be better to have a clean
Mm,
copy.
yeah.
Yeah, when they give that to us on Monday or Tuesday during the day, I'll update this before our meeting on Tuesday.
Well, what I'll do, Karen, is when,
Hopefully I'll
as
have
soon as I
numbers,
see
too.
that the warrant, the new warrant is published in the selectmen's packet, I'll do what I did this weekend. I'll go out and get them printed and distributed to all the members there. And then, because the selectmen are going to have to do the same thing. They're going to need numbers
Yeah, well,
because it's just, if I say, Article 12 in the warrant book, no one knows what Article 12 is. They're
Yeah.
not numbered, so. And they've changed around, and like your perennial herring fisheries, Mark, is not at the end this year. It's in
That
the
one's
middle.
already approved, so.
Huh?
That one's approved, so.
I know, but it's in the middle. So if, as much as I wanted to get through some of these warrants, I think it might be an exercise that we might regret. Because selectmen could go then
Yeah,
Monday night
then we have
and then move things around again, or change numbers,
Right,
so.
we have some rework to do.
Right, and then we voted on numbers that we weren't correct, so.
that's
uh,
true.
So with that being said, I'd like to unless any, like I said, next Tuesday, we're gonna go, Richard Gunderson is gonna come in and give a presentation. I've extended the invitation to Mr. Wasak and Bernadette Wasak to come in and talk to us also. I did speak with all the private petitioners that have private petitions. The selectmen did vote on the majority of those Monday night, and that, just to refresh people's mind, just so that you know that I did talk with these folks, and is the folks that came, let me just get to that page. private petitions. The first private petition was for governing and dispersal of school choice funds, and that was presented by Mr. Daniel Baker. I did speak to him, and the selectmen have not voted on his article, but his article is pretty much a non-binding article, so we can cover that one. The Chase Library we did vote on already. The two West Howard schools articles that are in there. The selectmen voted indefinitely postponement of those two. And then the last one was Richard Gutherson's, which the selectmen did vote to indefinitely postpone, but we haven't voted on that ourselves yet. Dan?
John, the Chronicle that came out today, one of the letters to the editor is by Gunderson, and he talks about some of the background behind
Sure.
what he's trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
So, just as FYI.
Well, he's going to come in, Tuesday night and speak to us.
Yeah, I understand that,
Oh.
but you can get kind of a heads up if you read his
Oh,
letter.
yeah, I mean, he's published a number of articles in the Chronicle over the last couple of months, along with other folks, kind of agreeing with him on his thoughts.
Is he just acting as a private citizen, or does he represent some kind of
No,
a group?
again, I don't want to get too much into it, but to answer that, he's acting, any private citizen can put a warrant together,
Oh,
as
yeah.
long as they get 10 signatures, and the people don't even have to agree with him. If there's 10 signatures, he can present it. If it passes legal opinion, it gets on the warrant. That's how, like, ban the plastic bottle got into it. So,
John,
yeah.
didn't the selectmen also vote on the hunting
That was
article?
an indefinite postponement one. Yes, I
Yeah,
missed
but-
that
but
one.
it's a
Thank you,
vote.
Angelo. That was, and I did speak to Carol Stone is her name? Yeah. And she's pretty much in agreement that she'll speak at town meeting on that. It was definitely postponed by the selectmen and because the selectmen, they don't have the right to pull a private petition. They can disagree with it or approve it, but they don't or recommend it, but they don't have to. They can't pull it. And but a private citizen can make a positive recommendation if both boards make indefinite postponement. So all the private petitioners have been notified of what we're up to, and with that, and then we got Tuesday and Thursday, gentlemen, to go through these articles. It's 6 o'clock, though. Okay, that's
Oh,
okay. 6 o'clock.
Next week,
Yeah.
Both of them?
6 o'clock.
Both of them are 6 o'clock,
Oh,
That's good to know.
and we'll be in the big room, and
Did-
hopefully we'll have.
It's the big room.
The big room,
This is
yeah.
the big room.
Like the Thanksgiving Day table, right, so.
The selectmen meeting was gonna be pulled earlier too. Did they do that? Remember, Michael
I know
suggested
they
that.
talked about it, I don't know if they,
It would be on their.
It'd be
web-
on their
it's-
agenda,
It's on
yeah.
their it's on their agenda. They posted their agenda today, if you want to quickly look at that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And on that, only 4 of us can participate in that meeting on Monday.
Okay.
And I checked, I was a little fuzzy on whether that meant 4 people in the room and people online, but the ruling is 4 people total. So either 4 present in the room, or what, if there's only 3 in the room, then there's 2 on the line, only 1 can be on the line. Any combination of more than 4 is considered a meeting, and we're not posting those meetings, so. I'm probably gonna be there Monday. Mark will be there, and Karen will probably
That's
be in the
at,
meeting.
Executive session starts at 5 and the regular meeting starts at 5:30.
Yeah, that's a good point. They did mention that last week.
5:30.
So we were limited to 4. There's 3 people that have been to prior selectmen's meetings, and the 3 of us will be there again. So anyone else would like to join us in the room or online, you're welcome. But if more than 4 come on, someone has to get off.
We'll be nice and let you do it alone.
Okay, and I'll send you updates, Angelo. Okay.
Well, the nice thing is that the video of the meeting is up rather
Yes.
Very
quickly the next
quickly, yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So I know I'm sitting there having my coffee in the morning and watching the video, and you
That's
can
enjoyable.
fast forward through
Right.
all of the.
Yeah.
Well, the
And what I'll
commercials-
do is I'll be there
record it.
Monday. I'll make video notes of certain things and send them out that, instead of searching through the whole tape.
What time did he say?
And
our
it looks
meeting's
like,
going?
according to the agenda, most of the
Both of them are
budget
at
stuff
six.
is at the very end.
I gotta update my
Anyway.
calendar, otherwise I'll mess up.
So with that, I guess I would entertain a motion for,
I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
7-0. The meeting is over. There will be no further discussion. Thank you.